You carry a code in your blood that quietly shapes how your body reacts to the world. Not your personality, not your choices, your reactions. How you clot after injury, how your immune system responds to threat, how stress settles into your physiology. Your blood type is part of that code, and it has been there long before you were born. Most people learn their blood type only when it matters in an emergency or a medical form. A letter, sometimes a plus or minus. It feels administrative, almost meaningless. But those markers exist because they describe real biological differences, differences that once mattered for survival and still echo today. This video is not about myths or personality labels. It will not tell you who you are. It explains something quieter and more important: how different blood types represent different survival strategies, how they emerged, what they helped early humans survive, and what those same adaptations can cost the body in the modern world. Blood types exist because humans did not evolve in one place, under one pressure, facing one disease environment. As populations migrated, settled, farmed, and clustered, the immune system adapted. Small molecular differences on red blood cells became advantages in some environments and liabilities in others. Evolution never chooses comfort. It chooses survival. By the end of this, you will understand what your blood type actually helps explain. Not as destiny, not as identity, but as a biological record of what your body was built to handle and what it still struggles with today. Type O is often described as the original human blood type, and that description is mostly accurate. Genetic evidence suggests it is the oldest of the major groups, present long before agriculture, before cities, before permanent settlements. It emerged in a world where injury, infection, and scarcity were constant threats. Bodies with type O blood tend to show patterns that make sense in that environment. One of the most consistent is how the blood handles clotting. The balance between clot formation and clot breakdown often leans toward rapid response. In practical terms, this helps explain why these bodies were better equipped to survive trauma, cuts, and bleeding in a world without medicine. This same system affects the cardiovascular system in quieter ways. Some research suggests that certain clot-related risks may be lower in type O populations, while other vulnerabilities appear elsewhere. Evolution rarely removes risk, it redistributes it. The immune system in type O bodies also shows traces of ancient pressure. There is evidence of stronger defense against some pathogens paired with higher vulnerability to others, particularly certain gastrointestinal infections. In environments where water and food safety were unreliable, this trade-off mattered. Type O helps explain why some bodies react decisively under acute stress, not emotionally but physiologically: heart rate, clotting response, inflammatory signaling. These systems move quickly when the body perceives danger, but that speed comes with cost. Systems designed for short bursts of survival do not always thrive in long, low-level stress. The same mechanisms that once protected early humans can become strained when threats are constant but invisible. This blood type does not explain temperament or behavior. It explains response under pressure, how the body mobilizes, how it prioritizes survival in moments that once determined life or death. Type A blood appears later in human history, emerging as populations began to settle, farm, and live in closer proximity. This was a biological response to a new kind of pressure. Less violence from predators, more exposure to other humans, more shared air, more shared pathogens. As communities grew denser, immune systems had to shift strategy. Type A reflects that shift. Rather than rapid, blunt defense, the body leans toward heightened sensitivity and sustained immune signaling. This helps explain why these bodies often respond strongly to prolonged challenges rather than sudden injury. One of the most studied differences involves stress hormones, particularly cortisol. Some research suggests that type A bodies may produce or maintain higher cortisol levels under chronic stress. This is not emotional fragility. It is a stress system designed to stay alert in crowded, complex environments. Clotting behavior also changes with this blood type. Type A blood tends to clot more readily than type O. In a settled world with fewer open wounds and more infections, this trade-off reduced certain risks while increasing others. Again, evolution never removes danger. It shifts where it appears. These patterns help explain why some bodies feel modern stress more deeply at a physiological level. Not because they are weaker, but because their systems were tuned for vigilance rather than impact. Type A is often misunderstood because its costs are quiet. There is no dramatic failure, there is accumulation, stress load, inflammation, where that builds slowly over time. This blood type explains why some bodies are highly responsive to environment, routine, and prolonged pressure. It does not define personality. It defines how the body manages survival when danger is persistent rather than sudden. Type B blood tells a different evolutionary story, one shaped less by settlement and more by movement. Genetic patterns suggest it became more common among populations that migrated across wide regions, adapting to changing climates, diets, and pathogens. In these environments, flexibility mattered. Type B reflects a metabolism and immune system that could adjust rather than specialize narrowly. This helps explain why these bodies often process fats and carbohydrates differently than other blood types. Not better or worse, but with a different balance. The immune system in type B bodies tends to show stronger specialization. Certain defenses are highly effective, while others are more selective. This can offer protection against some infections, while increasing susceptibility to inflammatory or autoimmune responses under specific conditions. This trade-off is important. A highly adaptive immune system is powerful, but power requires regulation. When regulation falters, inflammation can persist longer than intended. That is the cost of flexibility. Migration also meant dietary uncertainty. Type B bodies evolved in contexts where food sources shifted regularly. That history still shows up today in how these systems respond to nutritional stress, shortages, or sudden changes. None of this implies lifestyle instruction. It explains biological memory. The body carries assumptions about variability because variability once meant survival. Type B does not describe preference or habit. It describes a system built to adapt, to recalibrate, and sometimes to pay the price for that adaptability when modern conditions remove the original context. Type AB is the newest of the major blood types, and its rarity reflects that. It emerges when biological strategies merge rather than specialize. In evolutionary terms, it represents complexity layered on top of complexity. A B blood carries markers from both A and B. That combination creates a unique immune profile. One of the most visible advantages appears in medicine today. Type A/B individuals can receive blood from all major ABO types. In emergencies, this matters. But biological flexibility always carries cost. The immune system in AB bodies must manage a more complex signaling environment. Some research suggests increased vulnerability to certain infections, not because the system is weak, but because coordination becomes harder as complexity increases. There are also long-term trade-offs that emerge quietly. Studies have explored associations between type AB and increased risk of cognitive decline later in life. These findings are not destiny. They reflect how long-term immune and vascular patterns can shape aging. Complex systems are efficient when balanced. When balance shifts, small inefficiencies accumulate. That is the paradox of AB blood. It gains breadth but loses simplicity. This blood type helps explain why some bodies show mixed patterns, not extremes but overlaps. Strength paired with subtle vulnerability. Type AB is not a mistake of evolution. It is a compromise. A record of how biology sometimes chooses integration over specialization and accepts the silent costs that come with it. Beyond ABO and AB, there is another marker that quietly changes risk and outcome. The Rh factor. It is often reduced to a plus or minus, but biologically it reflects whether a specific protein is present on red blood cells. Most humans are Rh positive. That suggests the trait offered stability rather than advantage. Rh negative, by contrast, is rarer and unevenly distributed across populations, which tells us it persisted under very specific conditions. In medicine, the Rh factor becomes critical during blood transfusions. An Rh negative body exposed to Rh positive blood can mount a strong immune response. That reaction is not symbolic. It is physical, immediate, and potentially dangerous without proper matching. Pregnancy reveals the deeper evolutionary tension. When an Rh negative mother carries an Rh positive fetus, the immune system may recognize the fetal blood as foreign. Without medical intervention, this mismatch can create serious complications in subsequent pregnancies. This is not a flaw. It is the immune system doing exactly what it evolved to do. Identify difference, respond. Protect the body at all costs. The rarity of Rh-negative blood also makes it medically valuable. In emergencies, Rh-negative donors can give blood more broadly. Their scarcity turns into significance inside hospitals. The Rh factor helps explain why compatibility matters so much in moments of crisis. It shows how even small molecular differences can decide outcomes when the body is under extreme pressure. Your blood type does not tell a story about who you are. It tells a story about what your body remembers. Every marker, every antigen, every compatibility rule exists because it once helped someone survive long enough to pass it on. Type O reflects a body built for injury and urgency. Type A reflects vigilance in crowded environments. Type B carries flexibility shaped by movement and change. Type AB records the cost of complexity. The Rh factor reminds us how thin the line is between compatibility and conflict. None of these are advantages without cost. Evolution never offers free upgrades. Every protection creates a vulnerability somewhere else. And that balance is still playing out inside modern bodies. This is why blood type matters in real situations. In illness, in stress, in injury, in recovery. Not as destiny, but as tendency. A set of assumptions your physiology still makes about the world. When people misunderstand blood types, they turn biology into identity. That misses the point. Your blood is not a label. It is a survival archive. Understanding it does not box you in, it gives context. It explains why bodies respond differently under the same conditions, and why medicine cannot always treat everyone the same way. Your body is older than your lifestyle, older than your environment, older than most of the problems it now faces. And your blood carries the evidence of that history. If you know your blood type, share it in the comments and say what surprised you most in this video. And if you want to keep decoding the quiet logic written into the human body, subscribe to The Human Code.